If you want to understand the luxury hotel industry, you have to stop looking at the $1,000 room and start looking at the $300 million machine underneath it. The average guest sees marble, champagne, private cars, and a bed that costs more per night than some people earn in a month. The owner sees debt, payroll, management contracts, and 73,000 room nights that expire every year. We are going to break down exactly how that machine works, so if you appreciate the real blueprints behind lucrative industries, subscribe to Blueprint Economics YouTube channel right now. Because today, we are exploring the economics behind a luxury hotel. Let's begin with the first wall standing between you and the front desk: capital. In 2026, the median cost to develop a luxury hotel in the United States is above $1.6 million per room. Not per suite, per room. A 200-room property can therefore cross $320 million before the first guest orders room service. Some projects exceed $2 million per key, turning the same hotel into a $400 million bet. If you look at the blueprint, perhaps $45 million goes into land. $170 million disappears into concrete, steel, elevators, plumbing, kitchens, pools, and mechanical systems. Another $30 million funds furniture, fixtures, art, linen, and technology. Architecture, legal work, permits, consultants, and brand reviews may absorb $35 million more. Add pre-opening payroll, marketing, working capital, contingency, and construction interest, and the final $40 million can disappear before the doors open. A luxury hotel is not a building with 200 bedrooms. It is a small city whose population changes every night. Behind the lobby sit loading docks, commercial laundry, cold storage, staff elevators, backup generators, security rooms, employee cafeterias, and kitchens working before sunrise. A ballroom may sit empty for 4 days, then require enough electricity, food, and labor for 600 people on the 5th. Every glamorous space at the front needs an expensive support system behind it. Then there is time. A typical hotel development lasts 3 to 5 years. During that period, room revenue is zero, while engineers, contractors, insurers, and lenders keep billing you. In July 2026, the Federal Reserve's target range is 3.5 to 3.75%. Hotel construction debt costs more because the lender is financing an unfinished building whose value depends on travelers arriving years later. Assume you borrow $190 million at an illustrative 8% all-in cost. Fully drawn, that is more than $15 million of annual interest. A 12-month delay can add several million dollars. A zoning appeal is interest. Imported stone trapped at a port is interest. 200 bathroom fixtures rejected by the brand because the finish is wrong are interest. Before opening, you may need zoning approval, environmental review, traffic studies, building and fire permits, accessibility compliance, food service licensing, liquor approval, pool certification, spa permits, and brand technical approval. A local planning decision can remove 20 rooms, require extra parking, or force a multi-million-dollar redesign after the lender has already started charging interest. Then the operator arrives. You may own the land and every brick, yet the luxury brand can control the room design, lobby scent, restaurant concept, service hours, uniforms, toiletries, software, and minimum staffing levels. One disclosed Ritz-Carlton agreement required a base management fee equal to 3% of adjusted gross revenue, plus 10% of adjusted operating profit. Some management agreements run 20 to 25 years. The owner guarantees the debt and replaces the roof. The operator receives fees for running the property. On $50 million of annual revenue, a 3% base fee equals $1.5 million before you calculate whether your own investment earned an acceptable return. You also need reserves. A lender may require cash for debt service shortfalls, while the operator requires an FF&E reserve for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. At 4% of $50 million, $2 million is set aside every year. It remains your money, but it is not spendable profit, because luxury hotels age quickly and publicly. That is the capital wall. $300 million does not simply buy an asset. It creates fixed obligations that continue when the hotel is full, half empty, or closed. Those obligations are what turn a beautiful property into a financial furnace when demand shifts. One resort invested more than $2 billion, reached 70% completion, and still collapsed before welcoming its first guest. We will get to that failure shortly. First, you need to understand what the property is actually selling. 6 months before opening, the hotel may already employ a general manager, sales team, engineers, chefs, human resources staff, and department heads. Hundreds of employees then require recruitment, uniforms, background checks, and training before customer revenue exists. An $8 million pre-opening budget is not unusual in an illustrative $300 million project. Open too early and guests punish unfinished service with permanent reviews. Open too late and the lender charges you for an empty building. Draw 200 boxes on the blueprint, each represents one room. Multiply them by 365 nights, and your hotel has 73,000 room nights to sell each year. That inventory is perishable. When midnight passes and room 114 remains empty, that night can never be sold again. Assume an average rate of $700 and 68% occupancy. You sell 49,640 nights, creating roughly $34.7 million in room revenue. More than 23,000 nights expire unsold. Now cut the rate to $500 and raise occupancy to 75%. You sell more rooms, yet revenue falls to roughly $27.4 million. More guests, more laundry, more breakfast plates. $7 million less room revenue. Luxury hotels often protect price instead of chasing full occupancy, because discounting can destroy the social signal that supports the rate. The room equation is called revenue per available room, average daily rate multiplied by occupancy. At $700 and 68% occupancy, it equals $476. But room revenue is only the entrance fee. Once the guest arrives, the hotel surrounds a high-spending customer with convenient reasons not to leave. Let's draw the restaurant. A 150-seat dining room, turning its tables 1.5 times per evening at an average check of $110, could approach $9 million in annual dinner sales under strong utilization. Yet crowded tables do not guarantee enormous profit. In a large CBRE sample, food and beverage departments produced a 29.1% department margin in the first half of 2025. Labor represented 59.4% of department expenses, and ingredients another 24%. A famous restaurant may still be valuable even when its direct margin is modest. Suppose it earns $1 million but allows the hotel to charge an extra $100 across 30,000 room nights. That reputation creates another $3 million in room revenue. The restaurant is not only a restaurant, it is advertising you can eat. Bars add a different mechanic. A local executive can spend $80 on cocktails, pay $40 for valet parking, bring 3 clients, and leave without using a room. The hotel monetizes its location without surrendering one of its 200 bedrooms. Now draw the ballroom. 40 weddings at $150,000 each create $6 million in event revenue. But the real money comes from stacking departments. Wedding guests reserve bedrooms. The bridal party books the spa. The rehearsal dinner fills a restaurant. The bar runs late. Breakfast is crowded the next morning. One contract activates 5 revenue centers. Corporate groups provide even more predictable demand. A 3-day conference can commit to 200 rooms, catering minimums, meeting space rental, audio-visual services, and cancellation penalties months in advance. The customer sees one event invoice. The owner sees business-to-business revenue filling rooms that might otherwise expire. Then comes wellness. In 2024, luxury hotels with self-operated spas generated an average of $9,847 in spa revenue per available room. Applied to 200 rooms, that approaches $2 million annually. At luxury properties, spas represented about 4.2% of total revenue, and massages produced roughly 60 to 75% of treatment revenue. The peaceful treatment room hides another labor business. Spa revenue in the CBRE sample rose only 1.4% from 2023 to 2024, while spa labor costs increased 3.9%. To stabilize demand, urban properties sell local memberships and day passes. A resident paying several $1,000s for annual gym, pool, and spa access can generate recurring revenue without occupying a bedroom. Retail extends the relationship. Spa products can equal 15 to 30% of service revenue in some operations. A $200 robe or $70 candle earns a margin today and carries the hotel's brand into the customer's home. Luxury hospitality repeatedly turns memories into merchandise. Now we reach the most counterintuitive revenue stream on the blueprint, the apartments upstairs. A modern development may add 100 branded residences beside or above the hotel. They use the same name and share selected amenities, but their financial purpose is timing. Hotel rooms generate cash after opening. Residences can generate cash during construction. Suppose 100 branded units sell for an average of $3 million. Gross sales reach $300 million. Buyers may pay a deposit at signing, more when construction reaches milestones, and the balance at completion. Those staged payments reduce the developer's peak borrowing requirement and shorten the period during which interest compounds. This can be the reason the hotel gets built. A standalone 200-room property may not justify $320 million of construction cost. Add residences, and buyers begin supplying cash before the lobby opens. They think they are purchasing permanent access to a luxury lifestyle. Economically, their deposits may finance part of the temporary accommodation downstairs. The fact that apartment buyers can help finance the hotel beneath them is exactly why we build these case studies on Blueprint Economics. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss the next breakdown, because that early cash matters most when you see who gets paid before the owner. Start with the operator. A luxury manager may receive a base fee tied to gross revenue and an incentive fee tied to operating profit. Under one disclosed Ritz-Carlton structure, 3% of $50 million creates a $1.5 million base fee. If adjusted operating profit reaches $15 million and the incentive equals 10%, another $1.5 million goes to the manager. $3 million without buying the land. The operator may also allocate costs for reservations, loyalty programs, marketing, training, procurement, and technology. The precise contract varies, but the mechanic remains. The brand converts reputation into recurring fees, while the owner converts capital into concrete. The brand's strongest asset is distribution. It brings reservation systems, corporate accounts, travel advisor relationships, international sales teams, and customers who already understand what its name promises. An independent property may have the better view, but the branded hotel can often charge more because the customer trusts the standard. Suppose that trust adds $100 to the achievable rate across 49,000 sold nights. It creates nearly $5 million in extra room revenue. Paying several million in fees can therefore be rational, provided the brand genuinely creates the premium. But the risks remain unequal. The owner carries the mortgage, insurance, renovation, and physical obsolescence. The operator may still collect its base fee during a weak season. The owner funds the new lobby. The operator approves the design. Even guest memory becomes an economic asset. The hotel records pillow preferences, birthdays, favorite drinks, travel patterns, and previous spending. It can offer an anniversary package when the customer is most likely to buy. Luxury service appears spontaneous, but much of it is data converted into pricing power. The complete shadow model is now visible. Rooms attract the customer. Restaurants, bars, events, spas, memberships, retail, and transportation increase spending. Residences pull cash forward before opening. The operator monetizes the name through fees, and the owner holds the most expensive piece, the building. That model works beautifully when revenue grows. The problem begins when it stops. A $50 nightly resort charge can add $2.5 million across 50,000 occupied nights. It looks minor on one invoice, and significant on the owner's annual statement. Very significant. A luxury hotel has high operating leverage. Revenue can move quickly, costs move slowly. If demand falls 20%, you cannot reduce the building by 20%. You cannot return one elevator, heat only 80% of the pipes, or ask the lender to ignore the ballroom because it had a quiet month. Even at half occupancy, the property needs security, engineering, front desk coverage, management, insurance, property taxes, minimum restaurant staffing, technology, landscaping, utilities, and debt service. You can reduce temporary labor and close one outlet on slow nights, but remove too many five-star services and you damage the reputation that supports the five-star rate. Consider a hotel generating $50 million in revenue and $16 million of hotel EBITDA. After debt service, insurance, owner expenses, and a $2 million F&E reserve, perhaps $4 million reaches you before taxes. Now revenue falls 15%. $7.5 million disappears, but many costs remain. If you can remove only $3 million of expenses, EBITDA falls by $4.5 million. Your $4 million cash flow is gone. The hotel is open. Guests are posting photographs. Employees are carrying luggage. Financially, you are writing checks to preserve the appearance of success. Refinancing can deepen the loss. A loan taken at 5% and refinanced at 8% may add millions to annual debt service without creating one additional reservation. The rooms can be profitable. The restaurants can be profitable. The spa can be profitable. The capital structure can still consume everything. The clearest example stood on the Las Vegas Strip. Fontainebleau, Las Vegas was designed as a 3,800-room luxury resort. By 2009, more than $2 billion of debt and equity had already been invested, and the tower was roughly 70% complete. Then lenders terminated commitments to provide nearly $800 million of remaining construction funding. The project did not fail because guests disliked the rooms. There were no guests. Financing stopped before the asset could produce revenue. The company entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Construction halted, and a nearly completed tower became a 70-story monument to the difference between being valuable and being liquid. A lender cannot easily sell 70% of a hotel. A ballroom without carpet earns nothing. A guest room without operating systems earns nothing. A kitchen without staff earns nothing. Hundreds of millions had already been spent, yet the final portion of capital controlled whether the project was a resort or a shell. The tower remained unfinished for more than a decade. Ownership changed, designs aged, technology and guest expectations moved forward, while the building stood still. New developers eventually secured another $2.2 billion in construction financing in 2022. Fontainebleau finally opened in December 2023, associated with a completed cost of roughly $3.7 billion. 14 years passed between bankruptcy and opening. Time did not pause with the construction. Materials deteriorated. Finished spaces became dated. Technology had to be replaced before serving customers. A stalled luxury hotel is like a grounded aircraft with thousands of rooms attached. The engines are off, but carrying costs continue. Successful hotels face a slower version of the same threat. Every 7 to 10 years, guest rooms lose their novelty, carpets wear, bathrooms age, and competitors open with newer spas and restaurants. A brand-mandated renovation can cost tens of millions. Refuse, and the room rate weakens. Agree, and several years of cash flow disappear into walls and furniture. This creates the exit trap. A buyer does not only ask what the hotel earned last year, the buyer asks what must be spent next year. A property producing $20 million of EBITDA may appear worth $280 million at a 14 times multiple. But if the buyer expects $40 million of renovations, that bill reduces what the buyer will offer today. The sophisticated owner watches two clocks. The first measures annual cash flow. The second counts down to the next capital cycle. Sell early, and you surrender upside. Sell late, and the renovation invoice arrives before the buyer. After the employees, operator, lender, insurer, government, and reserve account receive their share, what do you actually keep? Operating inflation sharpens that clock. In 2024, hotel labor costs rose 4.8%, maintenance increased 5%, and insurance premiums climbed 17.4%. Revenue does not automatically rise at the same speed, especially when customers can compare hundreds of properties instantly. Let's run the actual blueprint. What does it cost to own one of these properties? And what do you actually get to keep? Tier 1 is a regional luxury boutique. You acquire a 60-room hotel in an affluent secondary market for $35 million. Then invest $7 million in the rooms, restaurant, bar, and spa. Total cost, $42 million. At a $450 average rate and 67% occupancy, room revenue reaches roughly $6.6 million. Add $3 million from food and beverage, $1.2 million from events, $600,000 from the spa, and $700,000 from parking and other services. Total revenue is about $12.1 million. Operating expenses consume $8.5 million, leaving $3.6 million of hotel EBITDA. Debt service, reserves, and owner expenses remove about $2.2 million. You keep roughly $1.4 million before taxes. That is a 3.3% yield on the full cost. Appreciation may improve the outcome, but one boutique hotel is not passive real estate. It is a $42 million operating company. Tier 2 is a standard branded luxury hotel. 200 rooms. Major city or established resort. International operator. Several restaurants. A ballroom. A full spa. and enough hidden infrastructure to support a small industrial business. Assume a total value of $280 million. At a $700 rate and 68% occupancy, rooms generate $34.7 million. Food and beverage contributes $10 million. Events add $4 million. Spa, parking, retail, and other services add $4.3 million. Total revenue, $53 million. Payroll and benefits take $18 million. Departmental costs consume $7 million. Utilities, repairs, sales, insurance, technology, and administration remove $8 million. Management and brand charges take about $3 million. Hotel EBITDA is roughly $17 million. Below that line, debt service consumes $10 million. A 4% F&E reserve removes $2.1 million. Owner expenses take another $1 million. You keep approximately $3.9 million before taxes. $53 million of revenue from a $280 million asset, producing less than $4 million of annual owner cash flow. If EBITDA rises from $17 million to $21 million and buyers pay 14 times profit, theoretical value rises by $56 million. The owner is improving both cash flow and the number a buyer multiplies. Tier 3 is an institutional luxury resort. 500 rooms, multiple pools and restaurants, conference facilities, a large spa, a $1 billion total capitalization. The hotel may generate $175 million in revenue, $55 million in EBITDA, and perhaps $15 million in owner cash flow after financing and reserves. $15 million on $1 billion sounds weak. Now add 150 branded residences selling for an average of $3.5 million. Gross residential sales reach $525 million. Development costs consume much of that amount, but the proceeds can repay construction debt, return equity, and reduce the permanent capital trapped in the hotel. The resort now contains 3 businesses: real estate development, hospitality operations, and brand licensing. Residences produce upfront cash. The hotel produces recurring income. The eventual sale creates the final return. In February 2026, Host Hotels sold 4 Seasons resorts in Orlando and Jackson Hole for $1.1 billion, after acquiring them for a combined $925 million. Host reported an 11% unlevered internal rate of return and estimated that selling avoided $88 million of capital expenditure over the next 5 years. The buyer received the resorts. Host handed over the next renovation cycle. That is the complete financial blueprint. Tier 1 is a demanding operating business. Tier 2 is an institutional asset whose value can move by tens of millions when annual profit changes by only a few million. Tier 3 combines residences, hotel income, and an eventual property sale. So what are you buying? Not beds. You are buying control over location, privacy, convenience, and time. Then monetizing the room, meal, meeting, massage, wedding, apartment, and eventually the building. A beautiful hotel with the wrong debt can fail. A crowded lobby can hide weak cash flow. The visible luxury is decoration. The invisible capital stack is the real product. You are buying the right to control affluent spending at a geographic choke point, while operating a machine that must appear effortless every day. If you want the blueprint behind the next industry that looks simple outside but behaves like a financial system underneath, subscribe to Blueprint Economics, and I will see you in the next breakdown.